Well, first and foremost, I want voters to know that I'm running for re-election to the seat that over 1.8 million of them elected me to in 2018. I'm both humble and grateful for those votes. I also want voters to know that I am an elected official who is a public servant, not a politician. Of course, good public service should be the only goal of anyone running for elected office, but I think it is more expected for those running for judicial seats. I'm honored and privileged to be one of those elected judicial public servants in our state and have been for almost 18 years, serving on our two highest courts. I spent 12 years on the Ohio Court of Appeals and now completing my first 6-year term on the Ohio Supreme Court. I am the most experienced appellate jurist on our Supreme Court. My background, my education, my experience, and years of judicial service are in stark contrast to my opponents, a politician who, with no prior judicial experience whatsoever, was appointed last year to a vacant seat on our highest court by his friend, the governor. Now, you might be wondering why someone who was given a seat on the court just last year has to now run against a sitting colleague for another seat on the court. The answer? He doesn't have to. He chose to. And as distasteful as he admitted to me this is, he allegedly was told that he would have to switch seats and run against one of the two incumbent Democratic justices up for re-election to the court this year in order to get that appointment. So I guess I'm the low-hanging fruit. I don't think in the history of our Ohio Supreme Court that a justice, an appointee nonetheless, has ever run to unseat a sitting colleague. And there is no doubt his decision to do this is based in large part, if not completely, on the fact that the supermajority in the General Assembly changed the law a few years ago with no bipartisan support and with opposition from the Ohio State Bar Association, the Ohio Court of Appeals Judges Association, and the Ohio Judicial Conference to require that political party affiliation be listed for some, but not all, judicial races and general elections. This, my friend, is the only way my junior colleague opponent stands a chance of winning. Hoping that the majority of voters make no inquiry about the two of us and just default to the party affiliation listed under his name. So last but not least, what I want voters to know is, regardless of whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, or an unaffiliated or independent voter, there really is no question about who's the better choice to continue good and independent judicial service on our Supreme Court. That choice is me. But by all means, voters should judge for themselves. In addition to checking out my opponent's ratings and my ratings on judgeforyourself.com, please view my short bio on that website. They can also go to judicialvotescount.org for more information about my opponent and about me. Or you can just go to my website or my social media and learn about me. What made me decide to run for judge? Ironically, every office I've ever run for, including student council president of my high school, has always come at the suggestion of another. My decision to run for the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court were no exceptions. I decided to run specifically for the Court of Appeals in the early 2000s as opposed to running for a seat on the trial court because I had spent the previous decade working primarily in law academia, researching and writing about the law and teaching law. So I thought that skill set made me well suited to be an appellate court judge, to do the same kind of work but in a way that had a more practical and a more far-reaching effect. And so after serving several terms on the Court of Appeals, serving on various law-related boards and commissions, and sitting by assignment on the Ohio Supreme Court, I felt very well prepared to do the kind of work on a statewide level that would help to make our judiciary more efficient, more effective, and more accountable to the people we serve. The highlight of my legal career. I'm fortunate to have had multiple highlights in my legal career, but certainly being elected to the Supreme Court is at the top of the list, particularly being the first and so far the only African-American woman or woman of color ever elected to the court. I come from humble beginnings. I'm a native Ohioan, born and raised in a home with a single mother who established the foundation for who I am today. She grew up in the segregated South where the schools for Black or Negro children in her state went up only to the 8th grade. So when the girls in her family finished 8th grade, they either started working as a domestic for local families or moved north to live with an older sibling for better work opportunities. My mother did the latter. She had me later in life, going on 40 when I was born. She worked for and retired from the United States Postal Service, and after she passed, I discovered that she got her GED when she was in her 60s, 1 year before I graduated from college. Although I shouldn't have been surprised by this discovery, I was, because when I was growing up, my mother seemed so well educated to me. She read a lot, wrote creatively, acted at Karamu House Theater, did crossword puzzles. She taught me how to read the ticker tape symbols in the newspapers for the stock market and how to play password and Scrabble when I was 8 years old. And I didn't beat her in Scrabble until I got to college. Among the many things my mother taught me, one was always leave a place better off than it was when you got there. I also discovered after she passed that she lived that motto when I found multiple commendations she had received from the Postal Service over the years for ways she implemented changes and improvements in her workplace. So, while serving on the Supreme Court and working to leave things better off than they were when I got there has been a highlight of my career, being reelected to the court would certainly be a highlight of my career. Well, as previously mentioned, what I hope to accomplish most as a member of the bench is to make the Supreme Court and our judicial system as a whole better than it was before I got there. And I hope that by being reelected to the Supreme Court, we can help take the influences of partisan politics out of the judiciary. And last but not least, although the bold and unprecedented decision of my junior colleague opponent to give up his seat on the Ohio Supreme Court to run for the seat I'm in is a constant reminder of how hard some of us have to work to get to where we are while others don't, I hope voters this fall send a resounding message to those in public office that experience, accomplishments, and doing work on behalf of the people we serve mean more than anything else, and reelect me to the Supreme Court. Thank you for your questions, and thank you for listening.